culture is and what is cultural, what is Islamic, and where the lines are and where they overlap. And just as an example, I mean, I think in like, of course, like Muslim women's autobiographies, when we learn about individual people in their one singular life, and this comes back to your question about what can we do about individually about all these issues. This last book I didn't show you is by a woman who was born in 1933 in Yugoslavia. So of course, her whole life, her whole young life, was the experience of her culture being ripped apart by the precursors of World War II and what came afterward, and the Germans and the Italians and the Nazis and the partisans and the Serbs and the Croats and the Bosnians all lived very happily when she was 5 years old. But then suddenly politics from the outside that wanted to rearrange and take charge in different ways began telling people, oh, you don't like those people because they call themselves this and that. But her recollections of her childhood indicate very clearly everyone lived together very nicely and in one space. And that was the case in Al-Andalus for 700 years until 1492 with the Muslims and the Jews being kicked out of southern Spain. And that was very much the case in Lebanon, as other stories indicate. So to come back to your question, what can we do? Well, we can know each other individually. We can do what we can individually and know that no one is perfect. God is perfect. We say perfection is with Allah. You put a flaw in that carpet lest you try to approach God's perfection. And you do what opportunities present to you. You do what you can with those opportunities. And you learn more. And it's okay to learn about individual experiences, either in books or through talking to individuals. Because once you have friends who are Muslim and Jewish and Christian and Hindu and Buddhist and all of that, and you talk to each other as human beings, then these stereotypes can't possibly be right, and you know from your own personal experience that they're not. So we just can't get discouraged. We're human beings, and we're always going to be flawed, and we're always going to be destroying one another. The only thing that we can do is work at it and not get discouraged and not give up. We don't have a choice. You know, we have to do the best we can with what we've got, wherever we are. And knowledge, which is, along with equality, one of the other foundational points of Islam, is really very important. It's essential to the human condition. The first revelation, read, recite in the name of God. Inform yourself, because the more you know about the world, the closer you get to God. So if we know each other more through what we read or meeting one another, then I know this sounds very Pollyanna, and it's not what political scientists say. But you know, these case studies are important too. You take the grand theories, but then you look at the tiny case studies as well to try to inform yourself about history in the region and how warfare is not about differences that are within us. They are imposed. These differences are imposed. So I don't know if that addresses anything.
I mean, I would agree with you. When I say it as a political scientist, I think you're right. I mean, we look at the small case study and we look at the large. You have to take it all in. And studying and learning. I mean, I tell my students all the time, when we go to China, they're just so worried about the language. I said the language is second. First is an open mind. You have an open mind, you go and you have a good time, and you learn and you absorb. But the language helps in learning and understanding. I get a lot of times, I get it all the time, talking to people, and after about 20 minutes of conversation, they say, oh, well, you're okay for an American. But it's, you know, you learn, you joke, you hang out with people, and you learn another culture. I mean, China, I feel it's my second home. Sometimes my first home. It's weird. I mean, I'm here, I'm in China, and I say, when am I going home? Now I'm here in the U.S., I say, when am I going home? Going back. And it's, you learn and you start, I think that builds and helps us kind of get a better understanding. Not everybody's going to learn another language, and God help you if you won't learn Chinese.
Yeah.
But it's, but I know a lot of students who know Arabic, who there's a couple in the room here I'm familiar with, who are learning other languages, and it's incredible. And they have a desire to change the world, and I think that they can and will by following their desire and being open. themselves for the great opportunities where they can make a difference. And I believe that.
So can a person change a life, change the entire world? Is this answer yes?
Yes.
Me, I would say no, but I would say you can change your own world. I'd say changing the world it depends on how. I mean, if you make your goal to change the whole world, I think you're going to be depressed a lot of the time.
There is actually very nice, the story. I love it. The man is walking on the seashore, and trying to put the seas.
The starfish.
Starfish, to the sea, and another guy comes and said, "What are you doing? I'm just saving them. Millions of them. It doesn't matter really one save." And then he throw. It doesn't. Now it does matter for that particular.
One of the story I tell
I
my
really love
daughter.
that, and I couldn't put in a very right way, but
But
I love it. Yeah.
you did a great job.
Two things that for the professors, want to comment. The religion is one of the things that very easily, the manipulate. For example, when you were really kid, the small things, and then you get to know one another, and then we were, the Sunnis, some Shiism as the region, mostly the Sunnis and a little bit the Shia. If you get angry and then beat this guy, and then immediately tell him that how his religion is the bad, or how his belief system is a bad. He was actually a fine boy, from that small scale, and then you can build up, the big scale. It's very easily manipulated. For the gentleman's, the question, I think I felt, myself that I am more integrated to the society after the Obama, took the office. I felt more relaxed, that I can, feel that, I am really part of the society. I can contribute to society. I can cry with you, I can laugh with you, I am just like, the youth. That's, I mean, you shouldn't expect the miraculous things from, the 4 years or hopefully, the 8 years administration, but it's something, to start with, I think we should just gain this momentum, really look at, the perspective of that one, no matter what ethnic background we are coming, and what's our ethnic background or language or group, we are all human beings. All that matters. That's what I'm saying, that sooner or later I'm going to die, and then but the memories will remain here, legacy will remain behind. So that's, I think, all that matters. The rest is just the history.
Yeah, I think the office shapes a man as much as a man shapes the office. It is part of. I
plan a testimony to that.
Exactly. So I'm hopeful, and again, I share your enthusiasm and I respect that.
May I say that in my little biography here, I have predicted that the present president in 20 years will go down as one of our least remembered presidents, while our present president will go down as one of our most remembered presidents.
I hope so.
Why so?
Yes.
In my opinion, after Cold War era, identity has become more related with economy and security. I mean, in unsecure and poor countries, developing or undeveloped countries, we can see strong identities or extremism. My question is about this situation. Can we use dialogue instead of extremism in these countries?
Extremism. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to paraphrase what Reza Aslan said when he was at the Dole Center some time ago. He was talking about Afghanistan and the Taliban versus the Al-Qaeda. And he said, the Taliban can be bought, can be talked with. You can pay them for their Kalashnikov and they'll put it down and walk away, go over the hill and go home, and they're happy because that's what they need. They need money, they're going home. But he said that Al-Qaeda is a different matter because they really feel that they have a spiritual high ground, and they cannot be reasoned with. So the original title of his book was How to Win a Cosmic War, and he cut right to the chase and said you can't. That with some people you can talk. With other people who are, and maybe these are included in the kinds of people you're talking about, like Al-Qaeda, there's no winning. But that was his perspective on that, so I'll just throw that out for what it's worth.
You know, I'm not an Africanist, but I've been very fortunate to work with people at Mogadishu University over the last 4 years now, and it's been basically over the internet. We first had an opportunity to talk with them. We were applying for the State Department to go visit, and my wife was pregnant with my daughter at the time. She said, if you go to Mogadishu, I'm going to kill you. So you don't have to worry about being killed there, I'm going to kill you. So that makes that program. But we've done it through the internet, and I've been communicating with these folks for the last 4 years. And what I get, and what my students have incorporated in my class as well, is this remarkable sense of love of education and need for education for development. They said as the university develops and people get more access to education, that really diffuses a lot of the extremism. However, the irony is, and I've had an email conversation with some of the professors there, is that they're saying as the U.S. is, as we speak, giving money to gear up for an offensive, they said that money would be much better spent if they would invest it more in the schools, invest it more in people who trying to help educate women and men in the Mogadishu area to where they have more opportunities. The people who graduate from the program, the classes we've been doing, they get, unfortunately, the really smart ones will leave. Some other ones will get jobs at the UN or get jobs in international organizations within and around Mogadishu. But that could be one of the answers here, is that what do we invest in? And how do we really narrow it down to say how could we help and diffuse? Because the true believers, and I mentioned Eric Hoffer, that's the ones you can't fight. People who are fighting for a better and higher world, and again, it's more self-renunciation. I can't make it in the real world, so I'm going to give everything I've got for this cities yet to be built, places yet to be seen, and it's very hard to fight against. But the only way to get around that, in my opinion, is to really help build an environment around them to where it isn't us or the U.S. or outsiders telling them no, it's people in the community saying no. We had enough of this. There's too many good things going on. We're not going to let you mess us up. But until that happens, I think that it's going to be hard to fight that.
Speaking of communication, I was thinking about the cyberspace. I was wondering, do you find that it's creating more of a clash, or do you see, as you mentioned, the potential? And is there any effort in using the potential of internet or exchange of ideas and so forth, getting closer to the areas that are way off the extreme or way up out of the mainstream? We hear hopes, for instance, in China, that there's so much more access that perhaps that's not working.
Most people, you go to an internet bar in China and they're basically playing video games.
There's no way of opening up areas for
There
understanding.
There is opening up areas of understanding, but for the average citizen, I would say no. I would say
But is there any attempt by governments or by educators or any attempt of looking at this means of learning, educating?
We were just talking in class with Professor Malcolm Gibson of journalism the other day, and he was talking about aljazeera.net, not .com. And we were talking about transparency in reporting, and he was making the point that he felt transparency was very important. There's always going to be bias, but if you're transparent about that bias, then it's more useful. And he was saying that he's very encouraged from a journalist's point of view about the use of the internet and the transformative capability of the internet.